This is Donna with More Than a Review, and I am thrilled to be here with Rhonda and Edie, and we are talking about their new book, UnRuffled, and it's Thriving in Chaos. I'm sure many of us can relate to that. And they're going to share with us a little bit about what does that mean, and have you, or do you feel like even right now you are living in chaos? And they may have some answers for you that you don't expect. So, like maybe sometimes we're meant to be there, and I think most of us assume when we're there we shouldn't be, like that something's happened. So share with us a little bit about UnRuffled.
Well, we do spend a lot of time trying to squirm out of trouble. Trouble is uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, whether it's a huge overwhelming to-do list and we're just in one of those busy seasons, or if it really is some legit difficulty. And yet when you look in God's Word, you do see people going through seasons that are really busy, and you see them going through these horrendous difficulties. So rather than saying, okay, it's not God's will for me to be experiencing this challenge, a lot of times we need to look at this challenge and say, okay, why am I in this? Because again, if we look at the life of Paul, we see that he was shipwrecked, he was beaten, he was imprisoned, all these terrible things. And if he had tried to squirm out of them, I wonder how much of the New Testament would be missing, you know? It was God's will for him to be experiencing those things. And sometimes we also are called into a season of being, challenged, and yet live in peace and live unruffled.
Oh. So Edie, what does unruffled mean to you?
To me, it means finding that place in life where the unruffledness of my spirit comes from an internal situation rather than everything that's going on around me.
Yeah. So do you have a tip for what we can do for us to feel that kind of unruffled in the peace when our lives feel like chaos?
I think we just have to lean in to Jesus. We have to lean into God. And that's a really Sunday school sort of answer, and it's a really hard thing to do. We have to be willing to look past the chaos of today and see that there's a purpose in it. Even if we can't see the purpose, God is still at work. Mm-hmm. And so it's really an exercise in faith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also good to, when we get into those seasons, it's good for us to do some evaluation. Like, am I in this challenge because of something stupid I've done? Or am I in this challenge just because I live in a world that groans under the curse of sin? Or am I in this mess because somebody else has been a jerk? Why am I in this difficulty? And evaluating that right there can help us know exactly what to do. Whatever we do, we lean into Jesus, whether it's someone we have to forgive or whatever it is. If we want to experience peace in these ruffly seasons, then it's got to be Jesus.
And forgiveness, or moving past something that has injured us is not always easy. A lot of times we think, oh, I just have to forgive. But I know one of the stories that I share in the book is in 2001, my best friend and her daughter were murdered by her husband. And I had to testify at his murder trial. And I carried a lot of anger, not just at him, but at God as well. And I couldn't even pray the words, help me forgive him, because I wanted to show my ruffled feathers to the world. I wanted people to know what he had done. And so I had to start 2 paces back and say, God, you have to get me to a point where I want to forgive. And it took a very long time for that to happen. But if we're honest with God in those moments, he will provide that unruffledness in seasons of just utter chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just so nobody is completely shocked when they read the book, Edie's the deep part. I cover all things shallow because you need the occasional, comic relief. So when we were writing the book, I would write something about laundry, and then I'd read Edie's chapter on oh my word, what happened to her sons? And I go, what am I doing in here?
But the fact is, the things that ruffle our feathers, sometimes they feel like they're trivial, but ruffled feathers are never trivial. And it's okay to deal with them even when it feels like we should just get over it. Sometimes we're not supposed to get over it. Sometimes we're supposed to get into it.
Yeah. So do you have an example that you feel like is where you were in chaos or a challenging situation and you realize like God has me here for a reason?
Well, okay, back to the shallow, because again, let me stay in my lane.
Laundry can be chaos for many moms out there.
I remember one day writing this to-do list and feeling incredibly overwhelmed by this to-do list. And really, basically what it came down to was sorting out what God had called me to do and what I had added to the list. But anyway, so there I am with my big overwhelming to-do list. And I thought, well, what I need to do is have some coffee first. So I write that on the list and check it out. So I go to fix my coffee and the dog gets my list.
Oh my God.
And by the time I get back, it's coleslaw under the table. And I felt ruffled, y'all. But it did help bring me to the place where, I could lean into what am I supposed to evaluate? What am I supposed to sort out? And in the big picture, is this a season God is calling me into, a season of busyness? And if so, am I going to have to handle that on my own? No. If I do, I'm going to make a mess. So sometimes He calls us into those seasons, but not to do it on our own. It's really God-powered.
Absolutely. And sometimes God does the ruffling of our feathers. One of the things that we discovered as we were writing this book is, the idea of ruffled feathers is very much in our vernacular in society, but there are examples in nature that we can learn from, that God has put there. And so as we were researching this book, we discovered that there are times when nature ruffles birds' feathers, and they don't like ruffled feathers any more than we do. But there are times like when they're molting that the feathers are ruffled and things are ugly, but they have to go through that process so that they can have the new feathers, because really a feather is a bird's protection. It's not just the fact that they can fly, but when the feathers are unruffled, it provides a coating that protects from the water, it protects from the elements. All of these different things work together, but yearly they have to go through this ruffling so that they can have the new feathers so that they can be protected.
That is great. And I think sometimes it helps you put the lesson, when you have the metaphor to bring it home to you.
Absolutely.
So what would you want readers to get out of the book? Like, who's the book for?
I think the book is for anyone who is feeling overwhelmed. Whether the overwhelmed comes from somebody else or from God or just the world we live in, just like what you said. I think, when you look at the ministry of Jesus, those 3 years of ministry, we didn't see him. There were times when he retreated with God, but in general, he walked into the midst of chaos and he brought peace. Okay, we carry God's Spirit within us. We can do the same thing. We do not have to retreat from chaos. We carry the peace of God with us. And when we walk into those situations boldly and in God's power, it's not just us who are changed.
And sometimes when we want to say, what, this is hard. What I'm being called into, it's hard, and I don't really want to do this. And yet, when we get in the middle of it and we're leaning on Christ and He's empowering us to do what we could otherwise not do at all, there is no sweeter peace. There is no greater place of satisfaction than being right there in the middle of it. And so I think that is our just our challenge to embrace the challenge.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So again, their book is Unruffled, Thriving in Chaos. And why don't you, in closing, let's tell us a little bit about yourself, because this is not even close to your first books. So let's share a little bit about what you've written and kind of what you do.
Go ahead.
Well, I've written, this will be my 15th book. And so I write mainly nonfiction. I have a series called Soul Care. And it was really funny because Rhonda and I were actually at an event last year. And we have wanted to do a book together for a very long time. And we were sort of brainstorming and talking about it. And we were with Karen Porter, and she was talking about peace and how that we can't always run away to experience it.
Actually, she was speaking. She
Yes.
was speaking, and we were in the audience misbehaving.
Yes, we were.
Let's just get
And
that
this
clear.
came to us. I mean, literally, we turned to each other, and Rhonda said, "Unruffled." And I was like, yes. And so, it's really funny because I thought this would be a great book to write, that I had been in situations where I had to be unruffled. And then we started writing the book, and there was conferences and family issues and deadlines and the losing friends and just all this stuff just piled thing upon thing upon thing, and God was still calling us to write in the midst of this. So we actually experienced everything in the book.
And every once in a while would email each other or talk on the phone. Oh, I see what's happening here. Yes, and this is probably about my 17th book, I think, too. And I write humor columns mostly because, again, got to cover the shallow. So that's my calling. But I write fiction also with my daughter, Kaylee Ray, and also write the Messy to Meaningful books with Kaylee and with Monica Schmelter, and the Fix Her Upper books with Beth Duell.
Yes.
So I like a party.
Oh, thank you guys very much for being
Thank
on
you.
here. Thank you.